Hi there guys, got a little bit of a special video here for you today. So this particular video uploaded to the channel will be the channel's 100th video. And for video number 100 I thought we'd do something a little special. So in this one what we're going to be doing is taking a normal bottle Redwolf and converting it to a cylinder version. So a cylinder Redwolf has already been done by Daystate themselves. A number of years ago now they did bring out the Daystate Redwolf FT version, but as far as I know there's only a handful ever been made, so they're quite rare, quite unique, and this one is going to be our one. So the actual mechanical conversion is very simple. So this is what's on a standard Redwolf. You have the bottle adapter here and obviously the bottle. The bottle just screws on this part here. This boss here fits inside the gun in the block. I'll get you a look at that in a second. And then down here is the fill adapter. So we've taken that off of our one and we're going to be replacing it with this unit down here. Now this isn't something I've made. This is actually from a Daystate Renegade or Pulsar. I think they're the same, but this one is from a Renegade. And this just fits straight into the block in place of the original one. And this thread here allows us to screw in a nice cylinder. This one is the one off the Renegade or the Pulsar. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's 0.3 litres, so 300 cc's, and that just screws onto this boss here. So I've already partially disassembled the rifle, taken everything that needs to come off. So if you are interested in how to take apart a Daystate Redwolf, I do already have a video on the channel. We do a full strip down and a full reassembly, so I won't go over it again here. But once that's all done, the new part is just simply a swap over fit. So to install the new part, I'm going to add a nice amount of silicone grease on these two O-rings here. Put our valve pin back in. So that just drops in that hole down there. Make sure it's seated against the valve face. And then this part, nice and carefully, pushes over the front there. Once that's done, we can take our screws and just get them all started. That's done using a 4mm Allen key. And there we have it. There's the new block installed. Next we can screw the cylinder on, so before that goes on, these two O-rings here, I'm just going to put a nice amount of silicone grease around them. They are fairly tight in the thread holes, and then the cylinder can screw on over the top. You do unfortunately need to put the air cylinder connection on the block before you screw the cylinder on, otherwise you can't get to these two screws at the top here. It is a bit of a pain, it's a very long thread, but there we have it. So we can get rid of our bottle now, and next we can put back on the circuit board and trigger. So for these I always find it easier to put the pressure sensor connection in first. That just goes in that pin there. Make sure you get it nice and straight. These are quite small connections, so they're very easy to break. Next we'll reinstall the coil wires. Don't know if you can see them there, but those two there, they just hook into that little connection block there. Like so. Just make sure that the wires are actually going right into the connection block there. You want the insulation as close to the actual block itself. And then with just a cross-headed screwdriver, just doing them up. Again, they don't need to be super tight as it's only a solder connection holding them on. So tight but not too tight. Next, you can do this screw up in here. That's done using a 5mm Allen key. Before you do that up tight, just make sure that the safety, this switch here, is lined up correctly and that the pin is actually contacting the switch. There we have it. Then we can put the cover plate back on. The only thing you've got to watch out with the cover plate is that these wires here don't get pinched between the two halves of the plastic cover. There's specific holes in them which the wires have to go in so they don't get pinched. And then we can just replace the cover screws. My ones might look a little different from yours. I replaced them horrible cheese headed ones that the Daystate Redwolf comes with. I just replaced them with M3 socket heads. Same length and everything, nothing special about them, but they're just so much nicer to screw in. Before you do them up tight, just make sure that none of the wires are pinched, so you can see that there, them wires move nice and freely. And so does the one at the back, so we can do that up nice and tight now. Before we reinstall the shroud, I just want to point out another thing of this rifle that we're quite proud of. Don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but the eagle eye among you may be able to tell that that's a poly barrel. So this particular barrel on this rifle is actually the Daystate ART or Art barrel. It's their specific competition polygon barrel, used mainly in FAC rifles, but we've been testing it on this sub 12 and it has been absolutely beautiful. The standard traditionally rifled Daystate Redwolf barrels are good on their own, but this thing is just on another level. It did take a little bit of machining to fit it in a sub 12 block. The FAC blocks come with a 14mm shank on the barrel themselves, so we just turned that down to 12 to suit the sub 12 block. So not a big issue, just a simple operation on the lathe. But this particular barrel, the Art barrel, was one of the selling points of the Redwolf FT version, so we've included it in ours. Right then, so that's the easy part over and done with. The conversion is super simple. It's just a straight swap of parts, nothing too complicated about that. However, the next part is much more complicated. So as it sits now, this particular rifle won't actually fit in a stock. The cylinder is a lot wider than the bottle is at the back here. So what we did was we made ourselves a custom Redwolf stock. So this is blue and silver laminate, you can see there. We took a lot of the styling cues along from the standard Redwolf, but we made the front a lot longer, more pointy, to better suit the cylinder. You see there. Is also handed, this stock. It's a bit tricky as there's a big hole in the grip there for the battery to go in, but it is handed. It's a right hand stock. Still got the adjustable cheek piece. We kept the original butt piece as we really quite like that. We've made the stock overall about 15 to 20mm longer, so it's a better length for us. Still uses the same fixing point. This is the battery hole. So our battery slides down in there, and then we've got a removable palm shelf that screws on over the top to secure the battery. Right then, so let's get this rifle in the stock. So it goes in exactly the same way a regular one does. The battery lead has got to feed its way through that hole there. We did make the lead hole on this stock a bit bigger, so it's easier to feed into the hole. And the action overall is a much tighter fit in the stock. So that last little press seats it home. The standard Redwolf stocks are a bit loose for my taste. We normally pack out the sides of the stock with just some insulating tape. Then we can do that screw up on the bottom there with an 8mm Allen key. Once that's done, we can take our battery, slide it in the grip there, seat it down the bottom, connect it up, and slide the palm shelf over the end there. There we have it. Right then, so I'll get this filled up with air, get it down the range and show you exactly what it can do. And here we are all set up down the range. We've got our shooting mat set out with the project name printed along the top there, Shedwolf. That wasn't our idea, someone on the forum came up with that, but it perfectly encapsulates the project. A Redwolf made in the shed. A good look along the side of the rifle. It really did turn out nice. Nice and glassy, we do like a shiny finish, with a nice flat bottom on the end there, so we can get a nice rest under the front. The rifle's really stable off one of these rests. We do also have a UIT rail on the bottom there, so if we wanted to add a hamster or something at a later date we can do. And at the end there we're just experimenting with a barrel weight. And there's a look at the other side there. As I said before, it is a handed stock. The cheek piece and the grip are more carved for right-handed shooters. We've rolled the top of the cheek piece over so it fits better against your cheek, but we wanted to keep it fairly close to the Redwolf original stock. Next up we'll take a look at the groupings, so we're really happy with how this thing's grouping so far. I've put the group sizes in the bottom left hand corner so you can see as they pop up, and I've also brought you in nice and close so you can see exactly what's happening. These are 5-shot groups at 50 yards using a 177, and the target that you're seeing there is a 6mm bullseye, the red circle in the middle there, and the outer circle is 25mm in diameter. So whilst you're seeing the groupings appear, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the project itself. So this little project's been in the works for well over a year now. Ever since we saw the FT Redwolf that Daystate themselves bought out, we thought we wanted a go at that. If I'm honest, bottle guns always look a little funny to us, and the Redwolf is one of them rifles that really lends itself to the sort of more sport or classic look, and we've slowly been accumulating parts. A little while ago now, we did announce on the channel that we bought a scrap Renegade. We was going to do something with a block, and this is where all the other parts went to. So the front block, the cylinder, and all those sort of things were earmarked for this project. The sticking point was mainly the stock, so we weren't sure whether we was going to be able to make one or whether we'd have to get one made. But asking around, it seems that Redwolf stocks are really quite hard to come by. No one really wants to make one as the inletting's fairly complex, so after a little bit of thinking we bought ourselves a blank and decided to have a go at it ourselves. We didn't video it or nothing like that as we weren't sure whether it was going to turn out good or not, but I'm really happy with how it did turn out. And as you can see from the groups that are appearing on the screen, the FT barrel is definitely doing its work. I will say that these are all unweighed pellets, all unsalted, so straight out the tin. If we sat down and weighed some, we may even get better groups than this, but we only videoed a few to give you a sort of general idea of how it was performing. Right then, with the groups out of the way, what I'll do is I'll bring you back to the workshop and we'll just have another look over the stock. Right then. So there we are back in the garage. Before we get the stock out again, I thought I'd just give you a good look over the mat we've got. So a friend gave us that, or got it for us. He had it made. I'll leave a link to the description where he got it from, but we're really impressed with it. It's got our logo there, the Shedwolf project title, his name on the bottom there, and here's the stock again. So I thought what we'd do is just go through the stock, pointing out some differences and sort of showing you how we done the inletting. I did take pictures as we'd done it, so we'll do sort of little overview of it. So we'll start at the back of the stock. So as I said before, it's about 15 or 20mm longer than a standard Redwolf stock. We did keep the original butt piece, as that's really quite a nice butt piece there. We kept the shape of the cheek piece riser. I didn't actually make the unit that we've got in there. I bought that off of eBay, but it took so long to make it for the Catran I thought we'd make our own. You can just see it in there. The same amount of adjustment. However, on this one, as I said before, the cheek piece is handed, so it's rolled more over on this side and hollowed out a little bit on the other side. Not to a major degree, it just allows you to get your head further in the centre of the stock to better line up with the back of the scope. There it is there. Coming along to the grip, as I said before, the palm shelf on the bottom there is mainly the battery cover. We really don't like the plastic cover piece that's on the bottom of the Daystates. It's really quite awkward to pop out, so we thought we'd do something different. As well as the grip being a little thicker and also handed. It's got more of a palm swell on the other side, and the actual angle and the finger grooves are in a slightly different position. It's more angled back and the finger grooves are slightly lower. Carrying along the side there, we've got the window, and the end there, the trigger. We sort of matched the shape of the trigger guard so that there was no like steps or nothing like that. Here it is at the top there. We kept the same stock level line, so it's the same level as a regular Redwolf stock. Along the sides here, we've got the nice flat bottom and also this finger groove along the side there. Makes it look a little more interesting, and when you're doing your standing shots you've got something to grab onto. Angled the front back a little, and on the bottom there, there's the UIT rail. Stock bolt, there's a trigger there. The other thing I thought I'd show you is the thumb rest. We moved the thumb rest or made it slightly thicker. We was able to leave this a little thicker so your thumb's in a better position. For us, our thumb is always hitting the safety and the safety is always in the way. So bringing it out a little means your thumb rests there and doesn't interact with the safety at all. Unless you want to, then you just lean forward a little, flick the safety on or off. I don't know if you can see that there. There's sort of the draft on the cheek piece. It's quite hard to show for the camera, but you feel it as soon as you get your cheek into the stock. And this is the other side, obviously. The only real difference on this one is that the grip's slightly different, and this little palm rest here, or palm shelf, isn't obviously present on the other side. We didn't want a full, like a big thick thing on the bottom here, so we just made a nice thin one, just to sort of incorporate the battery cover into something a little more interesting. Got a little cut out for your finger there, so you can rest your finger on the stock when you don't want to touch the trigger. The cocking arm for this one is just a temporary measure. We've just taken the back of the cocking arm off so it doesn't hit the stock. What we're going to eventually do for this rifle is make one of our short throw cocking arms, so it'll be a little unique, a little different. There it is there. And finally, I'll just talk a little about the inletting of the stock. So the first thing we did was inlet it for the block, just a bare block, and to do that what we used was the mill and a nice long end mill. There's nothing overly complex about the inletting in the stock itself, it's just very, very deep. Obviously the Redwolf is a very, very deep block as it's got the circuit board on the bottom, but it was pretty much milling out a rectangle where the stock goes here. Then we busted through for the trigger, so the trigger's a nice tight fit in there, but we drilled right through, again using a nice long 12mm end mill, and pocketed that out. Once that was done, we concentrated on the cylinder inletting. And if you really look at the end of the stock there, I don't know how well you'll see that, but the stock is rounded to suit the cylinder. You might be able to just see it there. We did that by using a half round bit, or a router bit, 20mm in radius. So a nice big wide cutter, got the cylinder fitting really quite well in there. It's a nice sturdy fit. Once that was done, we cut out the cheek piece, inletted the cheek piece riser posts and all of that sort of thing. Nothing too complicated on that. You did see that in the Catran build, so it was just a case of milling out a rectangle, drilling some holes, a couple of holes for the screws, and then finding the adjuster screw hole there, but nothing too complicated. The most complicated and the most tricky part of this whole operation is drilling the battery hole. So what we had to do was drill a 28mm hole all the way through the grip up until the block, so it breaks into the block hole, and that's the area in which we put our battery. So to do that it was awful tricky. We ran out of headspace on the mill, so we had to do a load of little tricks to try and grab a few extra inches, and that also involved angling the mill head over to get us a little more leeway. So it's a pain to set up, but once we actually did have everything set up it wasn't too bad. We used a butterfly bit in the end grain and just found the hole. The butterfly bit worked really quite well. I was surprised at how well it cut the laminate. If you go through this way with the butterfly bit, it tends to choke everything out. It doesn't leave a nice finish at all. But going through end grain with it, no problem at all. Obviously we had it clamped in the mill, clamped on either side with some nice thick steel plates, a couple G clamps, but we just drilled it straight through. After that we put a carbon fibre stiffening rod in there, so 28mm OD carbon, pressed in there, glued in there, to give the actual grip a bit of extra support. They did start to do that on the later Redwolf stocks. Most of the blue ones have it, and the new ones are starting to come through it with us as well. After that, nice simple job after that, just milling the slot for the UTI rail or UIT rail. Always get them two mixed up. Once all the inletting was done and finished, it was time for final sanding and shaping. So we removed most of the material, so all of sort of this area here with a bandsaw, just cutting out bits and pieces. We drilled this hole here, and my dad cut this out using a jigsaw. Not an ideal way to do it, but it did get us close to the final shape of the actual stock itself. Once that was done, a bit of rasping, a bit of planing, getting it down to thickness and also where we needed to get it. The details and things like these were put in by hand, both with the Dremel and then finishing off with some round rod covered in sandpaper, getting in there, filling out the groove nicely so it's even on both sides. The top edge, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up, but there is a rolled top edge like the original Redwolf stock has. We've done that with the router. Once it was all sanded and shaped to where we wanted it, it was finished off with sandpaper, just working up the grits, getting rid of all the scratches and things like that. Then it was just a case of oiling the stock. So we used True Oil to oil the stock to get this nice glassy finish. Lots of little coats, rubbing it in and rubbing it down between coats as well. That way you get a nice smooth glassy finish. This isn't totally finished yet, we're waiting for the oil to sink back. True Oil takes a very long time to go off properly hard, so we're just waiting for the True Oil to go off properly hard. It'll be a couple weeks yet, but once it's gone off fully, what we'll do is we'll flat it back and then start applying more oil. What that'll do is fill up any parts of grain that start showing, any little rough patches, and it will just make the stock look even glassier and smoother. But we're really happy with how this one came out. Right then guys, I hope you've enjoyed this little overview of the Shedwolf, a little project that comes to the channel. Made a nice milestone video as we're now hit 7,000 subscribers, and we've also hit 100 videos uploaded to the channel. So a nice little milestone there. Got lots of interest on the Catran video, but that's going to be coming next week. We're in the process of oiling it all now, so that's going to take another few days at least. But that will be coming next week for the next week's video. Right then guys, so thanks for watching, thanks for 7,000 subscribers, I'll see you in the next one.